Coming to you live from Johannesburg over the next hour, an in-depth look at the big local, international and African stories that are shaping our world this evening. This is Tonight with Jane Dutton. Tonight, the massive waters, the cyclone, the horrific loss of life, and now cholera. Many survivors are facing this new danger. Waterborne diseases are a debilitating result of flooding. And with people still inaccessible, the gift of the givers tells us of the trauma there. The secrecy behind an oil deal between South Africa and South Sudan and the allegations of millions spent and the private jets used to secure the deal. Why would our government keep this from us? And what are the possible benefits and dangers of South Africa doing business with this failed state? One victory, one fight still well underway. Donald Trump and Theresa May. Trump's been found not guilty of colluding with Russia during the 2016 elections. But he's not exonerated yet, and May's Brexit goes down to the wire again. We're live in Washington, D.C. and London. And then, disagreeing with Jacob Zuma's claims of innocence, the chair of the state capture inquiry says they have their own views. Raymond Zondo tells us on ENCA that the ANC government should be held responsible for state capture. First, the news headlines. Homes destroyed, hundreds killed and many left desperate. Residents of Mozambique's cyclone-hit Beira now face a possible cholera outbreak. Over a week ago, Cyclone Idai smashed into the coast, killing over 700 people across the region. The death toll is likely to rise, and people are in desperate need of food and other aid. Several organizations are operating in the country to assist the thousands of people who've been sick and displaced. A Gift of the Givers medical team leader says he was left traumatized by the situation.
I've been on missions before, but this is the first time that I had to make a decision where we left people without access, without medical care, on the basis of how severe other people were. So they were severely ill, needed medical care, it's just they weren't as severe as the other person. So I think that's extremely traumatic for the search and rescue guys, for the medical personnel there. And as I said, I had a very uneasy sleep. Thank God I was able to go back the next day and the subsequent day with the helicopters and check up on those patients. And I feel a bit more relieved now that those patients are on the path to recovery from a medical point of view. So the decisions I made, while hard and difficult at that time, had a happy outcome in this scenario.
Drama in KwaZulu-Natal's courts. Harry Gwala, District Mayor Muleki Ndobe, is off the hook for now. Murder charges against the ANC KwaZulu-Natal leader have been provisionally withdrawn. He was arrested last week over his alleged involvement in the murder of Sindiso Magaka. Ndobe has dismissed allegations against him, saying it's a conspiracy.
All I can say is that my name has been tarnished for wrong reasons. And I don't know what are the motives for that, but I will consult with the ANC leadership on the issue.
Did the Provincial Secretary of the ANC come to you on a matter of asking you to step down from as mayor?
No, he didn't, but we have been communicating. Actually, I must take the opportunity and thank the ANC leadership. NEC members who have given me support, PEC members who have given me support, and all the branches of the ANC and the society at large. I am really humbled with the support that I've received. Thank you.
Another ANC mayor in KwaZulu-Natal also appeared in court but will remain behind bars. Newcastle Mayor Ntutukulu Mashlaba has been charged with the murder of ANC Youth League Regional Chair Wandile Ngubeni in 2016. Ngubeni's supporters gathered outside the court demanding justice.
We are in fact in support of Mangasha and in support of the justice. Mangasha was our comrade, was my deputy. He was a leader of the ANC Youth League. So we support justice so that we'll find closure to the case of Wandile Mangasha Ngubeni.
What are you hoping to hear today once court proceedings do go underway?
It's simple, no bail. No bail for the suspect. That's all we want. And the police to further investigate, because I believe there are further investigations to be done, because there are more perpetrators to be apprehended on this case.
A rare bit of good news from Eskom. It says it's stabilised its diesel supply and doesn't anticipate load shedding this week. Interesting timing with Moody's in town. Now, South Africans endured a week of power cuts as the utility struggled with its generation capacity. Eskom has been burning almost 100 million rand of diesel daily to keep the lights on. Head of Generation, Andrew Etzinger, explains.
Our primary supplier of diesel is Petro SA, which is a refinery in the Cape, and unfortunately, we simply pushed them too hard. We'd burnt a huge amount of diesel, in the order of about 100 million rands worth of diesel per day, and Petro SA was simply not able to keep up, bearing in mind that they not only supply Eskom, but they supply the country to a large extent with diesel as well. So this was, unfortunately, a case of running out of product on their side. There were ships which were on their way to dock with additional product, which happened last Thursday, and we could start taking delivery of the new product as it flowed through to our stations after that. But certainly that was the reason for the problem. It was simply the rate at which we were consuming product from them. So we don't blame them. It was a difficult time for everybody.
DA leader Musi Maimane says he'll be mobilising people to march against the power cuts this Friday. He also wants Parliament to reconvene urgently to deal with the matter. Follows a week of rolling blackouts which left citizens and businesses in limbo.
Because on the 1st of April, South Africans will wake up to a shock. The shock is that they are going to increase the cost of fuel, as was tabled in the budget, and Eskom have been given an increase. Why are we asking the people of this country who are already settled with high costs of living to finance an entity that is failing to a government that is without a plan? We demand action and we demand change.
Classes have resumed at the Tswana University of Technology's Soshanguve campus. Academic activities were halted for 2 weeks over protests. Students say they're happy to be back in class.
I am happy to be back. Some of us are doing our 3rd years of study, and then we just want to get school over and done with and then go work.
I'm very happy to be back because we've wasted quite a lot of time on the academic side. We have not been learning, and there are still a lot of things that need to be covered. So we're very happy to be back, or I personally am happy to be back.
The reason why I'm happy to come back is that I'm going to study again, and then everything will be better for me.
I just want to study and finish my course. That's it. That's what I was hoping for. I wanted to come back to school and finish my course. But now there's strikes, they're not ending.
The survivor, Donald Trump, probably the best day of his presidency. Special Counsel Robert Mueller's report has cleared the Trump campaign of conspiring with Russia during the 2016 elections. Many in the White House are celebrating. The Democrats have probably lost their best chance, anyway, at this moment, to take down President Trump before the elections. What exactly does this report say, and what's the response? Joining me from Washington is U.S. correspondent Daniel Reinkies. Daniel, talk us through what happened, what's in that report, what's in the findings, or rather, what's not.
The simple answer to the question is we don't know what's in the report. What we do have, though, is a letter sent by the Attorney General, Mr. Barr, to members of Congress, summarizing what he thinks are the most important things in this, namely that there's no collusion with Russia, with Trump or any of his advisors, and secondly, that on the question of obstruction of justice, there is no conclusion, that there was evidence on both sides of this, but in the end, the Attorney General, who was appointed by Donald Trump, has concluded that there wasn't enough evidence to push forward on any obstruction claims. So that is literally all we know.
And also that he hasn't been exonerated yet. What does that mean?
Well, Donald Trump seems to think he is exonerated because he's tweeted no collusion, no obstruction, complete and total exoneration in capital letters, keep America great. Well, this will go on. That's the reality. There are still many investigations in the US Congress, but certainly the fact that they weren't able to find apparently a smoking gun between Donald Trump and Moscow means that some of the wind has been taken out of the sails of these investigations. They will have to do these a little more quietly and less overtly political as they continue to demand that the evidence or the general details in this report, if not the whole report itself, is made available to them so that members of Congress and the people of the United States can make their own mind up and not have it filtered by the Attorney General.
Okay, what are the ripple effects of this? Obviously, Donald Trump, extremely happy, but how's it being absorbed elsewhere?
Well, I think that this provides a weapon for Donald Trump. Anytime anybody comes after him alleging, financial wrongdoing, or if any, investigations continue, he can simply say that this is part of a major conspiracy by the powers that be, and that helps him because many of his supporters have a more conspiratorial point of view about how Washington operates. So it sort of confirms the narrative that he will be presenting to the American people, that essentially this has all been a witch hunt, and they are going to try to actually investigate the investigators going forward. We're not sure how that will all roll out. It looks as though they've done it by the book. Robert Mueller is respected both by the Democrats and the Republicans, so it's unlikely there's going to be much follow-through on that. But I think the ripple effect is that this provides a boost to Donald Trump's chances of re-election in 22 months' time.
Okay, Daniel, let's leave it there and bring in Professor of International Relations at Wits University, John Stremner. Obviously, this is going to have quite a political impact, won't it? Do you think it'll boost the supporters who've already stood by him all the way through this?
It's already had a big political impact that the segment from Washington suggests and that Trump can celebrate. But it's really a celebration for the American people because this was a thorough investigation. The confidence on both sides that everyone has in Robert Mueller has been upheld. He took a lot of abuse from Trump. Trump did not fire him, to Trump's credit. But I think what we've seen is the first big step. Now, the Zondo Commission here is much more transparent than what Robert Mueller has been. But with the shift to the Congress and the subpoena power of the Democrats in the House of Representatives, we may get more information that will be salient in the debate that's looming about the 2020 presidential election. And there is so much more material. After all, Robert Mueller was in business for 2 years, and Robert Barr, who is his Trump appointee, determines in 2 days that there's no collusion. That's certainly what seems to be the case with the report, but not on the conflict of interest side of things. And then there are all those cases that are pending up in the Southern District of New York.
He's not known for... He's not big on truths, is he? So, I mean, I suppose this would have helped Donald Trump with, his supporters again. And do you think it could give him the leverage that he needs now to push whatever it is that he's trying to push?
Well, his base hasn't changed too much. There are the swing voters, and they seem to be, by evidence of the November congressional election, ready to abandon the Republicans right now. The Republican Party is split, and this may solidify some of those in the Republican Party who are willing to sort of look the other way or not vote for Donald Trump. He does seem to get new boost of energy from this. But again, we don't know what's in the report, and what the Democrats are going to argue for, and the public should argue for, is let's see the full report.
Absolutely. As they should.
As they should.
And I'm sure Russia would be...
Well, Russia's been celebrating. It sounds like a Trump publicity exercise. But you have to ask yourself, why did all these people around Trump lie, who are now going to jail, his lawyer, his campaign manager, everyone else that had contacts with the Russians.
All those who surrounded
Even if it's not been a collusion, there was certainly a conspiracy by the Russians to influence the election. That has been detailed in the Mueller report, and Barr drew attention to it, and they have indicted a whole bunch of Russians for having been interfering in the U.S. election in 2016, and that was to elect Donald Trump. Then you also have to ask yourself, why does he always meet with Putin one-on-one and won't let the translator's notes be seen, or is so secretive about this? Why does he feel he has to lie so much? It could be to cover up his incompetence, or it could be because of some other nefarious connection that relates to money, and I've always said on this show, follow the money when it comes to Donald Trump.
So what happens to him now? I mean...
Well, what happens to him now is he's got to get ready for a 2020 presidential campaign.
Could this
meanwhile,
be the start? As, you know, we touched on other investigations underway. Could this be the start to get him out of the White House? I mean, does he have enough?
I think Nancy Pelosi, the head of the Democrats in the House of Representatives, has been very responsible on this and saying, let's not rush to impeachment. This is a political process for sure, not just a legal one. But we do need more facts. We only have this 4-page letter, which I've studied, and it doesn't tell you very much, and Barr has been rather ambiguous, certainly about the question of exoneration with regard to conflict of interest. And I think that you really have to wait until we get subpoenaed, if necessary, people who were involved in the investigation and were investigated, and get them to make public testimony like we do in the Zondo Commission here.
And the Democrats?
Well, Democrats...
What must they do now?
The Democrats ought to focus on education and health and other things which are really of concern to the American voters. I mean, many voters, we talk about this all the time, the Mueller report, but they want to see more delivery. Donald Trump has not delivered on his grandiose promises of the 2016 campaign, and that was evident in the repudiation that we saw in November. What happens in 2020 depends on who the Democrats put up for a candidate and how they frame the issues.
The strongest man at the moment?
Sorry?
Is Bernie the strongest that
No,
come up with?
it's too early to say anyone is. There are 20 of them running, and they run from Beto O'Rourke to some very talented women, and Kamala Harris from California, for example, or Amy Klobuchar from Minnesota, senators who have real gravitas and could be very strong opponents, but we will have to see. And then there's Joe Biden in the background, but he's older than I am, and that is not a good advertisement for the kind of demands
But
of the presidency.
do they stand a chance?
Well, I mean, do they stand a chance? Does the Democrat chance to win? This is for the Democrats to lose. Donald Trump has never been popular. He didn't win by a majority vote, remember, 3 million short in 16. So therefore, he's got to be able to solidify his base and to expand it again, as he was able to do with a lot of Obama voters, it seems, from the voting records. Getting those back into the Democratic coalition is going to be the real challenge, and that's going to have to be bread and butter issues, not obscure questions that don't really interest the voters.
And Hillary Clinton, what about her, and where do you think this is all going to end up when it comes to South Africa? How are we going to benefit?
I would hope that there would be a change of administration that would want to reestablish a commitment to climate change. I would hope that South Africa and the ANC could see beyond questions like Venezuela and Maduro and look to the practical cooperation. I think the U.S. and in areas of climate change, for example, or public health or food and energy can be very mutually supportive. I think it's incumbent on Cyril Ramaphosa and the government to sell South Africa to America, and for America, for sure, to sell itself to South Africa, but that cannot happen under Donald Trump because he doesn't.
And obviously,
really
everyone's worried about the trade war between China and the U.S. and the knock-on effect that will have.
If it comes to that, it's already been costly for a lot of other countries. But Rob Davis has worked very hard to keep AGOA in place, and I think that there is a lot of goodwill on the Hill side. After all, remember, Trump's nominee for Laura Marks for ambassador has not been approved or even had hearings on the Hill, and apparently has been quietly rejected by a bipartisan group on the Hill. So consequently, we don't, the U.S. does not have an ambassador here. It hasn't had one since Gaspard left. So it's going to be a while before we can have a better relationship. But after all, South Africa's got its own internal problems and is rightly focused on getting its own domestic political situation sorted out. Today is a day when everyone ought to look inward. They don't have to, the world's a pretty quiet place. They don't have to take away their concentration on making their own democracies work better.
Leave it on those wise words. John Stremler, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Still ahead, South Sudan's push to invest South Africa's push to invest in South Sudan's struggling oil industry. Is it a wise investment? And then the chair of the State Capture Inquiry tells us here on ENCA what he thinks of Jacob Zuma's claims of innocence.